you know. So when Ashish asked me to do this essay, I was wondering what is this intervention all about from my own perspective. How should I really do it? Technology is one area where I think the contestations have over the period stopped. It was one of the areas where contestations were there right in the beginning from 1930s onwards as a part of our freedom struggle. So I thought people who have articulated alternatives and have dealt with the mainstream technology challenge need to reflect themselves. And it's a piece which I'm trying to develop. It's still in work in progress. The revised paper also, I don't know whether it was circulated or not, but the first draft I did, the second draft, and maybe there would be a third draft after having heard all the friends here. So, you see, in fact, it's good that because we're trying to establish a dialogue and connection with the rest of the paper. When Elango was presenting his experience on the network, panchayat system that he's been trying to build, and maybe we don't know each other, and I didn't know certainly Elango's work, but we started working on the technological alternatives in 1980s, 85, 86, as People's Science Movement, and we used the word network. Our word was multi-sectoral rural network systems of group enterprises. We saw local economies as systems in themselves. And we didn't say, like Asim mentioned, the self-reliant village or is a self-sufficient village is a mythic, and we believe so that it is a mythic, and we really conceived 2 lakh population, 180 settlements, what was known as NBMS, and this all work is documented and been whole, and where the inspiration was what both Marx as well as even the experience of Kumarappa's work, etc. So that's why Vijay is always, all the time telling Vedantya and Marxism as far as it is concerned. Now, in this particular work, we've learned quite a lot as far as is concerned, that the way our work went on, what can we learn from is there. One, that the ecosystem conditions were helpful at that particular I think the fragility of the technology is coming out quite well. But I thought I'm now reflect in terms of the changes that we have seen over the period, and the way the people who are practicing alternatives now need to sort of rethink. Is one, that the ecosystem which was available to us in the early 80s when we started actually working had still diversity alive in the knowledge systems. In the sense, erosion had not yet taken place, and even within the mainstream SNP institution there was space, and I brought that out in the paper. You can read, I don't have time to actually give you examples here, but many of these trajectories were actually alive and kicking within the system at that particular point of time. As a result, it was possible to build on some of the 18 laboratories which we use from the CSIR system as far as it's concerned, to actually engage with the mainstream system. And today, in the last 2.5 decades, we have seen a considerable change in that particular respect. And at one point, I think people who are practicing alternatives need to think about as far as concerned, how do we intervene with regard to them. And I think in that context, the intervention, what Rajeshwari is building with regard to the kind of knowledge system that we envisage, I think we need to engage with even the so-called Bhatnagar system, so-called university system. Because the Bhatnagar system had this diversity to begin with, as I have articulated. I don't think that it was so rigid that Ernst on, etc. Similarly, if you look at the debate which took place with regard to the university at that particular time, till about 66 or 65, the conception of the university was still under contest as far as it's concerned. People talk about Kothari Commission, but I want to bring to your knowledge the Education Commission, which was known as the Radhakrishnan Commission, the 1948 higher education. It had the longest chapter on what was known as Ruled University at that time. The way the ruled in 5 minutes? Okay. Fair enough. So, I have dealt with it in a number of papers of mine, what that conception was, but it was a product of again the freedom struggle and the diversity that it actually respected, and it actually till '66 actually even when Govind Vallabh Pant set up the Pantnagar University, wanted to call it a rural university. But it wasn't a rural university, it was a land-grant model-based university. Our vision was very different of the rural university. Similarly, there was a vision about the city university also which was conceived. So if you look at the contestations that were taking place at that particular time with regard to the way the knowledge production and the institutions that we created were very, very sorry?
Sound is lost.
So the second point which I want to make is, I have made this question about the way the institutions, etc., were reshaped, there were contestations taking place. The second point that I want to bring out is that the kind of heuristics that were being used by the people who were trying to build alternatives. One was downsizing, other one was upsizing, and the third one was actually network technology system, where combinations are pursued as far as the concerned consciously with ecological and social justice and sustainability in mind. And I think that's pretty important, that what criteria do we use in creation of our technology system. Because generic technologies will continue to emerge as far as it's concerned. ICT, where proper technology debate was taking place, ICT was still not on the horizon in the way that today we see it, or the local broadband access networks were not at that time available as far as concerned. When we were shaping technological alternatives, we as part of the KVIC, which was upsizing traditional technologies, or CSIR trying to downsize technologies like rice mill being down there. A lot of work that went on in CSIR. And I did a study of all this particular work with the concern. It's been published in a 2014 paper in the India's Innovation System. The details can be looked at there. But one thing was very, very clear, that there were most of these particular cases, they did not succeed in fulfilling their vision as far as is concerned after a long time, after having been practiced or considered. So I think we need to reflect sometime on these particular challenges, and I've tried reflecting it in quite a few of my papers. But here in this particular essay, I have tried also then envisioning that after having learned from this particular experience, what do we, what's the way forward? And I think my first way forward is that the technological interconnections exist between agriculture and rural industrialization. This particular thing needs to be realized. Green revolution tried actually, hollowing out the whole possibilities which were there for rural industrialization as far as is concerned. And whereas I think agroecological approaches have the possibility of bringing back actually, the role of the so-called multi-sector rural network system of group enterprises, because we've implemented them even when green revolution was being actually tried out. Whereas if agroecological approaches come in place, and as we've shown in a number of places that if they are brought out, the self-sufficient or self-reliant regions are conceivable, then it is possible. But then we need to introduce, and my last point with regard to this, because I'd like to continue it in the course of discussion, that market and planning and the relations of production and the relations of resource and use are very, very critical questions which I asked to Elango. Because I think through market, if the relations are built among the communities or within the community, then you are bound to have conflicts and you are not going to realize. The idea of how do you actually build interrelations among the people is a very, very important issue. And technological systems can enable that. And somehow I think the progressive opinion has left the question of technological alternatives, which is what I call undone S&P. S&P doesn't take place in the absence of social mobilization, in the absence of contestation, is one of the most important challenges for the democratic movement, which is at the moment, whether I look at Marxists or whether I look at environmental movements or any of these people, I think here this particular question they need to really focus on, and I hope that my paper will be an attempt and way forward in that particular respect. Thank you very much. I'll rest in the discussions.
There's a book published recently by Amit Basule, it's edited by Amit Basule, called Lokvidya Perspectives, where he makes a distinction between Lokvidya and indigenous knowledge. in that the latter is patented and patentable, whereas the former is not. And this relates partly to what Vijay just said, which is that he uses the interesting category Bahishkrit Samaj, relating it to Karigar Samaj, and how so many skills, to use the modern contemporary expression, have been atrophying or perishing under the onslaught of the dialogue box, by which I refer to the idea that when so many times on our computer screen the dialogue box appears, if you don't say yes, you're in trouble. So it's obligatory to say yes. So I'm just using that as a metaphor. So the point that I think Vijay is trying to say relates to what Dinesh was saying about social mobilization and the disconnectedness of the epistemic regime of today to any form of social mobilization. And unless one can connect with forms of social mobilization which are active on the ground, we are consigned to epistemic irrelevance. So I'd like you to comment on this.
Whenever we are talking about science and technology in the public imagination, it's always equated with modernity, high input costs, and very exclusive as a domain. And at the same time, indigenous knowledge is largely undocumented, passed through the oral tradition very often, and excluded from mainstream consciousness. It's the alternative walas who are talking about being with the people and so on. So, and Kanchya Ilaya, in fact, in one reading that I read many years ago, had talked about Dalits and technology. I don't remember the title of the book, but he had really brought out how Dalits' contribution to technology development has never been quite documented. And so these are very powerful arguments. So when we are talking about this alternative future, what would be the vision we would have of bringing these together? Modern technology and indigenous knowledge to create democratic access to the masses, where it doesn't become, conference kind of discussion or a few who are kind of, we are part of this claiming ourselves to be leaders in alternative visions and all that, because this really has to be mainstreamed, and I think there's a lot we need to do for that kind of mainstreaming, because a lot of learning from those of us who come from formal education and went into this whole people learning modules in the 80s learned much more from grassroots mobilization than we would have ever learned from any textbook. So this kind of a revival of contact, how do we see this in the alternative vision?
Indigenous knowledge somehow survives. I mean, despite all our apprehensions, it somehow survives on the margins in India. And is it because of the fact that, as you said, that because it's not documented, because it's not marketable, it survives on the margins because it is relevant to the people and their lives. And the counter picture on that is that almost all indigenous knowledge has been wiped out in Europe and in North America, and is being sort of recreated, reimagined, simply because the market forces completely destroyed it. So, do you see that same kind of fear that can sort of take over in India and the Indian context?
हमारे यहाँ एक कहावत है, घर का जोगी जोगना राम गाँव का सूत्र दिवाली।
बाहर का जोगी से।
हाँ, बाहर का जोगी। असल में बात ये है कि हम लोग खुद देखिए गांव शहर, छोटे शहर बन रहे हैं, कस्बे बड़े शहर बन रहे हैं। हम देखते हैं कि जो हमारा एक छोटा कस्बा चंबा है, चंबा के लोग देहरादून आ रहे हैं, देहरादून के लोग दिल्ली आ रहे हैं, दिल्ली के लोग बाहर रहे हैं, विदेश में। तो मेरा कहने का मतलब ये है कि आज अगर सच्चाई से अगर देखें तो हमारी कितनी बोलियां गायब हो गई हैं, हमारा खान पान किस तरह से गायब हो रहा है, और हमारी भाषा किस तरह अभी देखिए हमारा जो चल रहा है ये हमारी भाषा का ही तो है, हम किसके लिए काम करना चाहते हैं, ये देखिए ना। तो ये एक अहम सवाल है कि हमारा जो पारंपरिक ज्ञान, जिस ज्ञान की हम बात कर रहे हैं, वो ज्ञान हम लोग खुद खत्म कर रहे हैं, हम लोग भी इसमें साझेदार हैं। आज का जो विकास है, आप बात हो रही थी, अभी खेती की बात हो रही है। अब जब जमीन नहीं होगी तो हम खाएंगे क्या? पैसा तो नहीं खाएंगे, पैसा शहर में मिल रहा है लेकिन पैसा तो नहीं खाएंगे। तो एक जरूरत ये है कि इस ज्ञान को कल को जरूरत पड़ेगी हमें, ये निश्चित तौर पर है कि आपका जो आधुनिक ज्ञान है ये ज्यादा टिकने वाला नहीं है, एक दिन फेल होने वाला है। आपके कोई भी बीज जो है, आज तक एक भी यूनिवर्सिटी ने ऐसा बीज नहीं बनाया जो आपके 4 सूखे का सामना कर सके। लेकिन लोग किसानों के पास ऐसे बीज हैं, रखे रहते हैं कि जो सूखे के टाइम पर उनके काम आते हैं, सूखे के जो अतिवृष्टि में लोग उनके काम आते हैं। तो आज जरूरत इस बात की है, जो हमारा पारंपरिक ज्ञान है, इंडिजिनस नॉलेज की जो आप बात कर रहे हैं, वो ज्ञान मर रहा है। उस ज्ञान को हम किस तरह जिंदा रखें? आप ही देखिए, एक जब बच्चों पर ये क्या कहते हैं, फुंसी होती है, कई क्या कहते हैं, एलर्जी हो जाती है। तो एलर्जी का आपके पास कोई ऐसा एलोपैथ में ऐसा इलाज नहीं कि तुरंत हो जाए। लेकिन गांव की महिला जाती है, वो पत्ता तोड़ के लाती है, किसी को नहीं बताती हो, हरा पत्ता तोड़ के लगाएगी, हाथ से मल के उसको लगाएगी और बिल्कुल ठीक हो जाता है। जिसको मकड़ा कहते हैं, एक मकड़ा कहते हैं कि मकड़ी किसी के जल को मकड़ी का भी उसमें होता है। तो ऐसी ऐसी बहुत सारी चीजें देश भर में, आदिवासियों में, इसमें। लेकिन जरूरत इस बात की है, हम उसको कितनी मान्यता दे रहे हैं। इस किताब में जो आएगी बात, तो उस किताब में उन महिलाओं का ज्ञान जो आज भी अब किसी डॉक्टर के पास नहीं जाते हैं और अपने खाने के लिए, अब आप छोटी सी बात है, पथरी कभी पथरी नहीं होगा, पथरी का रोग कभी नहीं होता है अगर आप गहर जो हस्त ग्रह में उसकी दाल लेते रहिए, कभी पथरी का रोग नहीं होगा। और अगर पथरी का रोग है, लोग जानते हैं गांव के लोग कि पथरी का रोग है, तो 1 महीने तक आप गहर का या हस्त ग्रह का सूप पीजिए, वो बिल्कुल ठीक हो जाता है। 100% है, वो टूट के पथरी निकल जाती है। तो बहुत सारी चीजें हैं, हमें इसमें ऐड करने की जरूरत है। धन्यवाद।
Without sounding as if I'm rejecting what Zardarji is saying, I just wanted to add a different perspective. Saying, first of all, in this room, we don't really have scientists and practicing scientists and engineers represented in any significant numbers. I think that's a major challenge for us, because what we see around us, I see a real disconnect between what we are saying and what we are doing. In the sense, all of us in this room, from this mic onwards to my laptop and my cell phone, we are all beneficiaries of this, highly denigrated modern science and technology. And I'm having a lot of trouble. How do we reconcile this, the cognitive dissonance, if you want to say, between this reality that we are living and the words that we are speaking? And I don't think it's something that we can just brush away by saying that in 2047 somehow it will get reconciled. I would like to see a deeper engagement with this question, because when I work on questions of water pollution, we're dealing with chemicals in water which did not exist 50 years ago. The chemicals themselves did not exist. Even when you look at sewage, which has been there for thousands, human sewage, but the scale at which human sewage today enters the streams is a very different scale. And there are intermediate technologies which we can use in certain contexts, and we are pushing for that in certain contexts. Like soap pits actually may not be a bad idea compared to wanting to go the western way of moving all the sewage through large pipes and therefore 150 LPCD and so on. But I'm just saying that this debate is not about either or. It seems we are casting it too much as either or, and I would like to see a much more subtle engagement with how do we work to make, in the sense that two ends meet or synergize or whatever. I'm not really seeing that. I'm not seeing people talking about the innovative potential of science and technology, because as even Ram said when somebody did a very strong critique of modern technology, that technology is, again, it has emancipatory potential as much as it has oppressive potential. I'm talking about Ram Goa. And we need to acknowledge both sides of the coin, and I'm not sure we're really doing that.
That if both speakers could say something about what really happened to the People's Science Movement in the last 30 years, and also the PPST process. If people want, and if there's time, I can say a little bit about that, because I attended 3 of the congresses. And this was pretty much the tension. This was the creative tension, at least in the PPST process.
वो either और कहाँ हो रहा है? It's a one-sided genocide of all our knowledge traditions, our aesthetics, our community living, and there's a single unilateral destruction of that. From globally connected instruments, which Asim said, we don't take our decision. Our economy is healthy and still crores of rupees disappear through stock exchange. तो एकदम यूनिलेटरल है हमारी साइंस का डिस्ट्रक्शन, हमारी पीपल साइंस का. कहीं वो डिस्कोर्स नहीं है आइदर और वाला, यूनिलेटरल का है.
Movements में maybe just it should be either or. If you are thinking of a movement, it cannot be this can also be and that can also be.
नहीं आइदर और की जरूरत नहीं है कि आप अपनी रियलिटी में रूट हो जाइए. देयर इज नो आइदर और. देयर आर पीपल सर्वाइविंग and they use all these modern gadgets wherever they are necessary. गांधी ने इस सवाल को कन्फ्रंट किया और इस पर पोजीशंस ली हैं. People do it every day.
I appreciate these passionate discussions, but I think we'll have to also give time to the office to respond after this last question.
Just a quick one, which kind of builds on a number of what people have said, which is also the erasure of oral knowledge. Because even what's happening with traditional knowledge is that more and more we're getting into this argument of let us document traditional knowledge so that we can keep it alive. Now maybe that's an important thing to do, but in the process what we are doing is to say that even the traditional knowledge which is oral gets marginalized.
Yeah.
So future vision में उसके बारे में क्या है हमारे जो मौखिक knowledge and such a creative, alive institution and still is in many places, including what Vijay is saying. How does that build into the vision for both of you?
कम्युनिटी डिस्ट्रॉय कर दीजिए, ओरल नॉलेज कैसे बचेगा भाई?
मैंने लोगों से कहा है पहाड़ में ढोल बजाने का कोई विद्या वैसे नहीं है, लेकिन ढोल बजाना एक कला नहीं, ये विज्ञान है. आप यहाँ ढोल बजा रहे हैं, एक विज्ञान के तरीका वहाँ अगर वही ढोल बजाए यहीं से ढोल तोड़ सकते हैं.
In people science, we never denigrated the mainstream modern S&P institutions. We thought we need to critically engage with them. The contestations need to be brought in, and they always existed, but the contestations die down also because there is a tendency for capital to allow, homogenization to take over as far as is concerned, diversity to erode, and so on, etc. So that's why critical engagement from those who actually are standing from the point of view of the people, in relation to the knowledge systems, alert and active. So we need to be alert and active. That's one very important point. And that's what we tried institutionalizing through the people science movement's efforts by building social carriers of alternate modernities, alternate S&P, the technological alternatives which are undone S&P. Just to give you an example, because I think that will clarify, we started our work with leather, pottery, blacksmithy, and started work with fruits and vegetable processing. Just to take one example from leather, that is as concerned, we started engaging with the possibilities that we can give to the fairs. So because the fairs were selling, hides and skins to the traders, and were not willing to give hides and skins to the tanner, which was also, more or less closer to the same caste as far as is concerned. When the tanner had been given a technology which was discovered by, or worked by, not discovered, but developed by Dr. Nagoma, which was an improved vegetable tanning of leather as far as is concerned, built on indigenous knowledge, the Lok Vidya as far as is concerned. It built on it, upgraded it. And as a result, that particular process, actually could even help us to reimagine the community, the relations within the community. And so this social, how do you actually ensure that? And we saw, different technological systems had to be put together. It was carcass digesters, it was the improved vegetable lander, the new tools for the cobbler and the shoemaker and so on, etc. So we had to really think of a local intervention where the social carrier had to be created. And that social carrier, the whole thing has been written out, we have implemented it, we have learned a huge amount from that particular experience. Our challenge is at this particular time how to multiply it in the new context as well, where the state is not at all allowing us to, as favorable environment as it used to be. At the same time, even in the social and political environment, the kind of young people we could attract at that particular point of time, how do you even sustain now if we attract the young people? We have that whole challenge. In the people science movement, we have attracted a large number of young people, both through the education movement, as well as health movement, as well as technology movement. But our challenge remains that we will keep keep going away to the other all kinds of NGOs as far as this happens, because people want to make a living. While imaginations have been fired as far as is concerned, but the challenge of living remains for them as far as concerned, like, and we cannot grudge that particular challenge as far as they face. So this is, I think, so we saw the reimagining of the community, we saw the reimagining of the social mobilization. And I can tell you that this reimagination was not without struggle. And even within the Marxist movement or the left movement, our work is seen as still, not very, most critical as far as is concerned. But we had to sort of engage with them also, and as farmers want to see, even the social, political leadership also wanted to see whether we have something to contribute actually as far as is concerned from people's science movement. And this effort has not been, without success. It has had success. It got, whether it's in Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad or Delhi Science Forum or very many other people's movement, we started getting certain amount of support. But still, the challenge as far as is not small as far as it's concerned, even with regard to, like in agriculture, for example, I was pointing out that for very long, the possibility of not only the mainstream S&T institutions seeing agroecological approaches relevant, even the social leadership and the political leadership does not still see whether to talk about science or not. So we have a huge challenge, and I really can continue to engage with it, experience by experience that we have dealt with. And I really want that our neither denigration, rethink alternate modernity, create alternate social careers of innovation, and we can learn from our experience. And the one experience which I really want to say, that the heuristics need to be rethought in terms of the way we network locally as far as this is concerned. Because our experience is that like we succeeded in Uttarakhand, we succeeded in Himachal Pradesh, we succeeded in Tripura, but when it came to West Bengal, we found it very difficult to do. Okay? You can ask me why, how, so on, etc. What is the challenge? The Bhadralok Marxism is can be a problem as far as this is concerned. And I hope the Marxism which will take root would be a Marxism not of the Bhadralok variety, but of a different variety, which probably Kerala is more amenable to, maybe Andhra is more amenable to, and I hope Bengal will learn. I have a hope. Buddha started thinking he's building capitalism, but I thought he should have said what kind of possibilities of different varieties of, even if he was trying out as far as it's concerned. No, the point which I want to make it, what Ashish?
100 साल में नहीं सीखा.
100 साल में नहीं सीखा. But Ashish, I have this problem with almost all social movements, let me tell you as well, including our professionals and knowledge system people, producers. Learning is a very, very slow process with us as far as it's concerned. All kinds of academic trends and ideological trends have this problem as far as it's concerned. I do not want to be overcritical of my own biradari, and neither I am going to be admiring the other biradari, because all have partly failed us also as far as it's concerned. And I think let's be humble and let's keep trying and let's be optimistic, and that's what I think. Thank you.